Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and this podcast is ranked in the top 2% of the most popular podcasts in the world. And it's all because of my incredible guests. I am honored and blessed to share time with people who are at the top of their game, and they show up here willing to help you get to where you want to be in life and in business. These are not people who hold back. Their goal is to share with us the essence of peak performance, so take notes. My guest today, Ross Jenkins, is the founder and leader of the digital marketing agency DigitalME, and that is focused on helping companies with outbound marketing, CRM, and online presence optimization. And he's a leading figure in the freelancing industry, or as I've heard it termed, the gig economy, gig. GIG. His journey in the freelancing industry is truly nothing short of remarkable. With just 3 years of joining the Upwork platform in 2018, he achieved the extraordinary feat of becoming one of the highest earning freelancers, amassing over $1 million in earning. And that's a testament to his exceptional skills and unwavering dedication. And I'm not sure 1 million is correct. I'll ask him about that. I think it's more. So building upon his freelancing success, Ross took a bold step by establishing his own digital marketing agency, as I mentioned, DigitalME, M-E, and through his relentless efforts and strategic approach, he transformed his freelance hustle into $1 million enterprise. It's a major accomplishment. So, Ross, welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. You have a rather fascinating history. Tell us how you show up in the world.
Hey, Denise. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I show up all over the Google searches. What we try to do is educate people better on email marketing and being able to sort of help their businesses, but also, as you mentioned, I like to try get people more involved with freelancing. It's something that I have a huge passion for. Before COVID, there's a stigma about freelancing that it didn't exist or this or that, and then obviously after COVID, you can see the results now. But yeah,
very much. Yeah, I never understood why there was a stigma about it. Listen, I'm a web developer. I have a small team. Every single one of them is not anywhere near me, and they're all freelancers. And some of them have been with me for many years.
Yeah, the stigma comes from a lot of people who jump jobs and stuff like that, and then recruiters see that they've been a freelancer for maybe 6 months, and they say, that doesn't really exist. You kind of had a gap year or this or that. Whereas the reality is, I've been freelancing for a while now, for like 5 years, if not longer. It is certainly a real job that's paid for a lot of holidays, a lot of houses and stuff like that. So it exists for sure.
It really does. And this isn't an international podcast. You're calling today from Spain. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. We go between Spain and Dubai. And it's great because our freelancers, the people who work with us, they live all over the world, just like you. We have people in America, in the UK, in Spain, in Philippines. And I think that's the fantastic thing about freelancing.
It is, and I wouldn't say that I could term myself a freelancer because I do own a small digital agency, but I do a lot of freelancing. People will say, Denise, can you help me with this? Sure. And I'll go do it. It's not part of my normal, you pay me a retainer, hiring me on a product. It's like, Sure, I'll be happy to do it. So in some ways, I do consider myself to be part of the gig economy.
Yeah, and I think even small business owners, I think a lot of them are freelancers. They just don't have that kind of title. If someone came to you and said, "Hey, Denise, I need a landing page built. Can you get it built?" You doing that technically classes as you being a freelancer.
Exactly. and I'll do it. And, 2 days later, it's done, and we're all happy, and I move on to my regular work. So to me, it's like, oh, it kind of breaks up the monotony a little bit. I enjoy it. So, Ross, your expertise in digital marketing and CRM systems, that's earned you the #1 ranking on Upwork. What strategies or approaches do you believe set you apart and solidified your reputation as a preeminent authority in this field? I mean, it looks like you started out and you never stopped.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to quality. You look at what I've earned, but you also have to understand like how much money I've built for companies. Um, Take for example a company that had been around for about 30 years before I started working for them, maybe three and a half years ago. They had no one on their database. No, they've never sent an email, and now they make $4 million a year just from emails. You know, in general, we've probably made over $150 million for companies. And that's kind of where a lot of our revenues came from as well, because a lot of it we split up into commission and stuff like that, just to give us a bit of an angle in terms of give us a bit more drive. If we think that you've got a great product, you're a good founder, you're a good CEO, and we have interest, it makes sense for us to work with you on some form of commission deal and stuff like that. And that's fun. I like that. I like having a bit of drive. I used to do door-to-door sales. So doing a commission job for email marketing is kind of a walk in the park.
And I was going to ask you, how did you get started in this? It's an unusual career path, I think. So, and you said door to door. So how did you go from door to door to being where you are now?
Yeah, so obviously I'm from a really small town in England, and there's no real prospective jobs where you can go and do like climb the ladders. There's no Deloitte, there's no EY or anything like that. So you have to travel a long way to kind of get decent stuff. And there was a sales gig, and I thought, you know what, I could probably nail this. I'd done door to door for about 8 months, and it was great fun. But I mean, walking in the rain in England and knocking on 100+ doors a day isn't my ideal type of scenario, but it is a good way to get driven. And that really set me apart. Then I worked for agencies in various different countries like Ireland, Qatar, England, and I got to the point where I realized that I was getting screwed over by agencies taking a huge cut, and there was massive gaps in the market with like communication or quality. And I knew that I could build something that was going to be 100 times better, the quality, the communication. And I just thought, all right, I'm going to leave. I'll go to Barcelona. I'll spend 6 months there on my own and just put my head in the sand and just try work.
But that makes sense. And I'm really enjoying you're going here, there, and yonder. Here we would be going, oh, I'm going to Baton Rouge. It's 50 miles down the road. We
Yeah.
just don't travel, as most of us don't travel the way people in Europe say. And I'm always fascinated by how y'all move around, and it's just like nothing special to me. I'm like, tell me more. I'm curious. It's just so fascinating. But you also, and I want to ask you, was there a moment when you were walking around in soggy England, because I do know that it's quite soggy over there, but it was there a moment when you said, I'm not doing this anymore? Was there, I call them God winks, when something hits you like a bolt of lightning and you go, okay, 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 I heard it for the last time. I'm doing something different now.
Yeah, I mean, there was honestly a lot of incidents that occurred that I don't know how many I can tell you, but there was a lot of incidents that I'd go into people's houses, at 4 p.m. I'd chat to them, and 4 p.m. they'd let me in the house, and we'd be able to sell them the internet. And you'd work for this one deal all day, and then the husband comes back or the wife comes back, and they're like, nope, not interested, and you're like, damn.
Oh,
There was loads of those instances where I was just like, just major disheartened. And then I just thought, if I can sell people internet on the street, I could probably sell things on email. I could sell people on the phone, you know, and be in the comfort of the warmth, and be able to sit on an office chair rather than walking, 100 doors.
exactly. And let's talk about email, because there's a big argument going on, has been for decades, as far as I can tell, a long, long time. Your email is dead. Newsletters are dead. I don't think they are. What is I mean, you obviously do a lot with email. What are some of your best attitudes, views, tips, tricks? What do you say about email marketing?
Yeah, it's all about your personality. And a lot of people just do one thing and try it once and then, quit. It's like, if you got into a car and you try driving it for the first time, you're probably going to have trouble, especially in Europe where you have to drive a manual. Um, it takes time. It takes time to practice your art and to be able to, speak what's going on. All of our emails, we try to personalize them. They come from a person. They look as authentic as me or you emailing each other. And they sell really well because we're putting a personality. No one wants to reply to a robot, or a no reply email address, or personality sells, and that's what people forget. Email is certainly not dead. If anything, we're seeing a massive pickup this year. It's been growing ever since we came into the game 5 years ago, but even more so now. I don't see it going anywhere. And you can use email for absolutely everything: notifications, newsletters, sale emails, upsell emails. There's hundreds of ways that you could evolve in your business. If you're B2B or B2C, you definitely should have an email marketing system.
And I don't know about you, but I do suspect, listening to you and watching the work you do online, is that storytelling is a big part of how you present. People like stories. We want to know who you are, why you're doing what you're doing, what's in it for us. We don't want the, hey, Denise, blah, 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 go buy now. Oh, listen, I will get rid of that so quick.
Yeah, it's about storytelling and being relatable. When you're trying to tell a story, you want it to be as relatable as possible to that audience. So, for instance, if you're going to email, CEOs, you want to email them about, an upsell at Starbucks and why it's relatable to their business. Or you want to email, mums, and you want to get into Facebook groups and build an audience relatable to that message that you're trying to send. People try the one-off sends, or they try to be too generic or send something. Like, I've took on clients who have honestly given me like 30,000 contacts on paper, and I've had to go and scan all of them.
On
And
paper.
then, yeah, so that's like thousands of papers.
Ow.
Um, you know, and then you ask them what they want to communicate to their list, or what angle they're trying to go, and they're saying, we just want to sell this, and there's no way that they're trying to send a message. So you have to build a story around why that's relatable, or why it should be valuable to that person's inbox. It's like anything. You're trying to build a relationship. You can't just jump straight A to B.
Exactly. And I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent right now because this has been happening daily on LinkedIn. And I'm telling you, I have spent more time recently on people doing exactly what you're just describing, but without a newsletter or without an email address. They will say, Denise, can we connect? Sure. And I'll go ahead and connect. 10 minutes later, they're trying to get me to hire them, or mostly these days it's for podcasting. People say, oh, I can get your podcast all over the world. I've already done that. If you'd done your homework, you would know this. And I am spending, sadly, a lot more time on LinkedIn just blocking people. Because you didn't buy me coffee, you're asking me to get married, go away. It's just really annoying.
Yeah, and it's about knowing your customers. For instance, that person didn't realize that your podcast is already number two, well, in the top 2%. So
That's exactly
of
right.
course
They
it's
should have known that if
worldwide.
they were paying attention at all.
Yeah, and I think even if they gave you a couple of lines of, why they could help you and make it relatable to your business and show that they've, done a little bit of research, that goes a long way.
And that goes back to what I said earlier. And as a web developer, I will be talking with my potential clients or current clients, and they'll say, oh, Denise, I will always ask, who is your audience? And they'll say, oh, everyone. All right. Sit down, grab a cup of coffee. We're going to be here a while while we niche this down. But the truth is, whether you're landing on a website or you're reading a newsletter or an email, we all, as humans, the first thing we're looking for is what's in it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about adding value. And that's why cold emailing still exists, right? Because, we have a lot of cold email clients and they're great, but it takes a while because you're trying to build a relationship rather than you emailing your past client list, which is a gold mine. Trying to build a new relationship takes time. And you get people who come in and say, by tomorrow, I want lots of sales on a cold email. And it's not going to happen because you have
No,
to build that relationship.
and you're going to really tick people off. One thing that bothers me, and I wanted to kind of get your perspective on this. My personal email is not listed anywhere, but if I'm emailing somebody, particularly in my podcasting clients or, just it doesn't matter who, if I email them and I'm instantly put on their email list, I get a little ticky about that.
Yeah, because you're not the ideal audience either, so it's not worth it. Some people just want to build their list because they want to build their list, and some people want to build their list smartly and by getting the right audience. And I personally wouldn't do that, but yeah, it's all about audiences.
A lot of people are doing that, and honestly, people who should know better. It's really become a problem. Okay, so let's move on. You contribute some really great articles to Entrepreneur Magazine, and you share invaluable insights on business growth and marketing strategies. Can you share some of your top tips for business
Yeah,
business who are looking to enhance their marketing efforts? Because that's what we're talking about today.
yeah, for sure. So there's different sources you can go for marketing. There's various different angles. Obviously, cold emailing is a great one, but it depends if you're trying to build new audiences or try to engage your current audience more. So for instance, one thing I just mentioned 2 seconds ago was, if you email your past client list and you've got a sale on, or you've got, you want to update them about news, it's honestly a gold mine. Most companies miss out on it. And it's one of the simplest ways to increase your revenue. And it's so simple. It's so easy to do. And people are scared to hit that send button. But I promise, once you start building a relationship with them again, it's worth it. You look at new audiences, there's various different ways you can target, depending on your age demographic. You're looking at TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or even Twitter, which is now called X. They all have different sort of age demographics, and it really depends on who or what you're trying to sell.
Well, that makes sense. And I just wrote this down because I wanted to ask you. You've mentioned a couple of times, and it's clearly very important, is, getting in touch with your past clients. My question is, should you directly email them if they're not on your email list? Because you don't want to add them. You add me, I'm going to have something to say about it. In fact, I've been known to have something to say about it. So, how do you work around? Do you just say, hey, I know we haven't been in touch for a while. I built your website 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was. I see you on Facebook, blah, 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 blah. Is that the best way to get back in touch with former clients? And
Yeah,
then ask them to join your marketing list?
well, it really depends on how they purchase from you. For instance, if you
Ah,
purchase from us, you go on a list because you've said that you're going to go on a list. That's just the way that we
right,
operate.
right.
Um, and we make it quite clear that, if you don't want to be on a list, just let us know. And barely anyone, honestly, less than one or two people have opted out. So you just got to make it quite clear. But yeah, realistically, you want to send a real personal email for that first email. Just giving them an update on what's going on, and let them click a link if they want to be updated more and more with the newsletters. And you obviously have to sell it better than just a newsletter. You have to say why they want to be involved in it. Let's say that we're talking about an Amazon business. So you've got an Amazon shop, and we're an Amazon sort of a marketing company. We're going to say, check into our newsletter. Here's why. We'll give you tips and tricks on how to increase your SEO on your Amazon listing. We'll help you increase your prices to compete better. We're going to help you with your pictures and make them look more appealing. You want to give them a reason to opt in. And normally people would be like, that's a no-brainer. I'm going to click it.
Yeah, one of the worst things you can do is just say, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Let's connect. Here's my newsletter." Ah, that's a
Yeah,
no.
why?
You haven't
Yeah,
given any solid reason for me to pay any attention to what you're offering. I need to know more.
yeah, you want to sell it, but obviously it's completely free, but you want to sell why they should be on that newsletter. There's various different ways. One being, I can only take 100 people on this newsletter. I've given all my tips and tricks for the next 100 days. Just playing around with things like that works quite well. But that's more so for sort of B2C companies. B2B companies, you want to say why people should be on that list. And, if you want to give them a discount or you want to do this or that, make it appealing and make it a bold statement.
And be personable. I think a lot of people forget that you're talking or communicating with other humans. So be personable, not personal, but be personable. There's a difference there. And if you don't understand that, I can't help you. I really can't. But I wanted to ask you about the freelancing landscape because I know it can be very, very challenging. And people, I think, and this is just my observation, I don't have any data to support this, but I think more and more people are moving towards freelancing, particularly in the social media world. Unfortunately, they're not prepared for it. So, based on your experience and the articles you've written, what key advice would you give freelancers who are aiming to work in, let's just call it social media marketing? What can they do to succeed in today's market? What should they learn?
It's really tricky because you look at social media marketing as well as sort of admin, as well as customer support. These jobs are massively inflated. There's more supply than there is actual demand, by a long, long, long way. So you're competing, and the second issue is you're competing on price. There's going to be people who work for $2 or $3 an hour to get these jobs. Honestly, upskill and either try build a really good brand around what you're doing, because there is people who have amazing social media brands. You look at Social Chain, you look at there's a admin on Upwork who makes like $200,000 a year. There's various people who really succeed in these niches, but they're massively overinflated. So you have to make yourself that brand, make yourself that person that people come to when they're in trouble. For customer support, instead of just doing normal customer support, build macros for Zendesk, or build FAQs for companies. Be completely unique and make something that other people aren't. Because if you're going to go and be a generalist in these kind of categories, you're going to get generalist pay, and you're competing with people who will scrape the barrel. It's not worth it.
No, and I'm so glad you explained it that way because I spent some time in a couple of Facebook groups, and I'm telling you, I will never need a facelift because I read some of these things. I look at the responses, and my eyebrows hit my hairline. I look permanently surprised. I'm like, what? Where did that come from? But you're right. And what worries me or concerns me or kind of makes my stomach hurt, to be honest, is the sheer panic that these people are putting out there. It's like, I think my prices are too high. And I'm looking at their prices going, you're going to go broke. Go get a
Yeah.
job or upskill or do something different because what you just did was completely deflated your income potential.
Yeah, one thing I see, I have a lot of people who I mentor on Upwork, and one thing you see is, for instance, let's say your USD per hour is $30 per hour, so you're getting 30 an hour. Now, someone comes to you and they say, "Hey, will you work for 6?" And you're like, "Yep." And I'm
What?
like, "Why would you do that?"
Why?
And they're like, "Because it's a job." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you're growing your feedback. So you want your feedback to all say that you're earning $30 an hour." obviously you're going to increase that, but you want to have as many you want it to be as high as possible. So when you bid for a job and someone actually looks at how much you're earning, you want it to say $30. Because if you put it as $6, you've just gone all the way back to where you started. And you're trying to it's not greed that they're going for, but it's more so just they don't realize that they can say no to a client. You know, it's about how you can add value to a company. And I always say this to people who I'm bringing on as freelancers. You know, I want you to be able to add at least double the value that I'm paying you. So if I'm paying you $100 an hour, I want you to be able to make me $200 an hour. And a lot of these guys don't have those kind of case studies or don't understand how they can work out that kind of number. But that's massively important into freelancing, to be able to understand how much you're worth and why you're worth that much.
I'm so glad you said that and I was just talking with somebody that I'm mentoring about podcasting the other day, and she was talking completely different from podcasting, but she was saying, I just don't feel like I could charge this kind of fee for what she's doing. And I said, where's that coming from? She said, well, I don't think they can afford it. I said, who told you they can't afford it? You're trying to put yourself into their shoes, and that never works. What value are you bringing? How can you help them grow? You know, and people do this all the time. And I see it in these groups. Like, I just don't think they can afford it. They're not going to hire me. Well, you just shot yourself in the foot. Big time.
Yeah, a lot of them you don't want them to hire you as well. Like whenever a prospect says, will you work for this amount and it's lower than my average, I just tell them to go work with someone else. I'm like, if budget is your issue, I'd say go work with the next person. And normally they'll come back and they'll say, would you do it for this? And I'm like, no, I don't want to work with you anymore. There's
I
no point
don't
because
like you. I've
if
done
you
that. I don't like you.
yeah, if you can't value my time, then it's not really worth it for me. We've got case studies all over the place, and if you can't see that, or you don't want to believe that, then go work with someone who's got no case studies and throw your money at a wall.
Exactly. And we've been kind of skirting around this a little bit, but rejecting clients can be a pretty delicate process unless you're me and you say, nope, I'm not going to do it and move on. But how do you approach rejecting clients while maintaining professionalism and preserving potential future relationships? Or sometimes, just you don't even want that future relationship. They've already told you who they think you are.
Yeah, honestly, we reject quite a lot of people. That's for like various reasons. That might be, the way that they talk to people, or for instance, we were working with a client not too long ago, and I was in a Slack group and he was talking to everyone pretty bad. And I was like, I said to my partner, if he spoke to me like that, he'd be fired. I'd fire him. Um, and the next day he spoke to me like that, and I said, all right, well, I'd say get back on Upwork and hire someone else, because I'm not interested in working with you anymore. And he obviously victimized himself and said, I've had a hard day, this, that. Said, but speaking to someone like that, you're going to make them have a hard day, because this is their livelihood. You're their employer. You might only pay me 3 hours a week, but some of these people, you are their only hope because they work 40 hours a week for you. So when you talk to them horribly, they probably go home and think, am I going to have a job tomorrow? Whereas me, I don't really need you, so it's not worth working with you. So we're pretty cutthroat. Obviously, I've took on a huge amount of clients in the past that may or may not have been a fit, and that's where you learn. You learn from various different things, that if a client's going to be good or if a prospect is going to be good. If people want things cheap, I normally tell them to find someone else. And I won't, even if they come back to my hourly, I won't do it because they've already shown that they want to pay as little as possible, so it's not worth it.
And the thing with the people that you're describing, and I did the same thing when I was young and stupid. I've been doing this for a while. And when I got to the point where if my phone rang or I saw their name pop up in an email and I had to grab the Tums bottle, it was time to, it's like, I don't like you. I can't stand you. I'm firing you. And I've done it not that many times, but when I did it, I meant it.
Yeah, and I think that's you know, especially being a freelancer, you have to value your mental health as well. And you need to value your time. I've had clients who are only paying me 1 or 2 hours a week, and I'm out maybe shopping or something like that, and they're like, "Get home right now," and I'm like, "Well,
Excuse me?
you're already at like 2 hours for this week, so you don't have any more time anyway. But if you want
No.
to increase it, you can." And they're like, "No, I just need this done right now," and it's like, if I'm out, I'm out. You're gonna have to, if I have a staff member online and they can do it, sure. But realistically, people like that, I don't really have the time for. I want to work with people who are passionate about their business, but also treating people amazingly. Listen, I'm not asking you to give me, I'm not asking you to give me loads of things. I'm asking for my normal hourly salary and you to treat me as a human. It's not too much to ask.
It isn't. And I've told this story on this podcast before because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a one-man band, but I have a great team. But I almost lost my team, well over a decade ago, because I'm a techie nerd. I'm a nerd in stilettos. I don't ever ask anyone in my team to do something that I can't actually do myself,
Yeah.
or I'm actually knowledgeable about myself. So I know what to ask them. The mistake that I was making early on was just telling them what to do, not understanding that these people basically train in one or two arenas. That's it. They're specialists in the work that they're doing. They're not, just picking in here, there, and yonder. They're specialists. And I didn't realize that. And I noticed eventually that the responses I was getting was like, okay, done. Nothing else. There was no real conversation. They were doing the work, but they were doing it obviously very grudgingly. And I went, what the heck is going on? So I sat down and I went back through, all my correspondence back and forth. I went, oh, I'm being a boss instead of a leader. And I'm the bottleneck. And I got a hold of all of them, put them on a Zoom call, and said, I owe you individually and collectively a big apology. You know, what I really need for you to do is when I ask you to do something or I, task you with a project, tell me how you would do it and what can be done better and use your expertise. And that opened everything up and they didn't quit.
Yeah, I think it's about giving sort of creative freedom, isn't it? We have
Yeah.
a lot of developers on our team, and I always kind of chat to them about, what angle would you go on this or that? Let's say we're looking at, a HubSpot dashboard, and someone wants a specific thing into their dashboard. I'll say, would we do it this way or would we do it that way? What would you do? And normally they'll come back and they'll give me their ideas and we go from there. They're the experts in this. I'm the expert
Exactly.
in marketing and they're the
Right.
experts in that. So you let them do what they do best and you do what you do best.
Well, it took me way too long to figure that out. I just thought I was just all that and a banana. I really did. It's a bag of chips. I just thought I was the boss. They needed to do what I told them to do, and that wasn't working. Now, God bless them, they tolerated it for longer than they probably should have. But I salvaged it just in time by changing my mindset and my attitude and making sure that I appreciated them then and now, because without them, I'm nowhere.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, the team mean everything. And we still have our first employee and it's
Me too.
great.
I'm not an employee, but my first contractor. Same.
Yeah. So, and it is great, really. But honestly, we've had like our ups and downs with hiring and firing and, people leaving and various different things. And, you learn from it and you kind of build a better team around it. We go from times from like 30 full-time freelancers down to, 12. And then we'll go all the way back up to 40 because we'll learn from what we've done badly or, for instance, we recently just let go of a developer who wasn't coming in but was charging us and the work was late and I was ending up chasing him all around the place. And I thought, why am I chasing you? You should be chasing me to give you work. And it's just not the way that I want to work as a CEO and as someone who actually enjoys doing business. I don't want to be chasing people around.
No, and if you have to chase this person around and they've got a deadline and that's not being met, that lands on you.
Yeah, because it's me who has to go back to the client, and I'm like, don't know where your work is, and that shouldn't happen. That definitely
No,
shouldn't happen.
no,
Um, and so it's building upon that.
it is. So, I mean, clearly you ensure that top quality service is critical for your client satisfaction. And I think I was going to ask, how do you ensure that you're consistently delivering the best quality to your clients? But can you expand on that? I think you answered it a bit.
Yeah, so we pass everything through multiple developers and myself. So when we're delivering a piece of work, it goes through two or three people, and then they check either the code or the front end. We're trying to perfect things. We're not trying to make things. That's why we're quite a high-end agency. You can't come to us and say, I want a $20 HTML page. It's just not going to happen. So we want
Not
to
even
deliver
with
real good.
AI. If people say, "Oh, AI can do that," good luck with that.
Yeah, we get that often, especially with the rise of Elementor, where people are like, I want a quote on 50 pages, and you give them a quote, and they're like, "Oh, I could get that. I could get a full-time developer to do that. Go ahead, do it." Or I could do that on Elementor. Do it. Just
Right. Go for it.
um, and then they'll come back and they'll ask questions about how to do it, and you're like, you should have just hired me. Um, yeah, so it's about getting other people to look at it, because listen, when you're tired or when you've done 10 hours of work, you might miss something, and that's why getting another person and another person to look over something is massively important.
And going back to, I'm so glad you said that. Going back to email, I can get a bit testy. I think I've made that clear. I'm easy to get along with as long as you do what you're told, nobody gets hurt. But I have learned, instead of being snarky and testy, if I'm really upset about something, it doesn't happen often, thank goodness, but when it does, I am hot. And I will say, I'll write down I'll write out my email response, and then I'll send it to two different people and say, "Can you fix this?" I don't want to send it. Yeah, I know better, because I'll say something that's just not going to be able to walk it back. So if you're in a temper tantrum or you're hot and cranky and tired, I live in the deep south. Tomorrow's hurricane season. I'm going to be hot, cranky, and tired for the next 6 months. I can tell you right now. But I've learned to not just, gut rip something out and send it. That's a way to ruin.
Yeah, you don't want to make decisions based on emotions. You always
No.
want to kind of let it cool down and then evaluate what's gone on or what's gone wrong, and build from there. We've all made decisions when we're hot-headed, and 99% of them are probably incorrect.
Yeah, and they will come back and bite you in the butt. So don't do it. Just calm down. Ask for somebody to look at it and say, "Ooh, Denise, you were having a hissy fit there, weren't you? Okay, let's try this." And I take my hissy fit down a notch or two and come up with something that's palatable to both me and the recipient.
Yeah, agreed. That's really the way to go.
It is. So scaling a business is a major milestone. When did you understand, when you first started with Upwork, when did you understand that you were onto something and you were able to scale it? What was that all about? What happened?
Sure. So, the first client we had was a guy called Ryan. He was in Los Angeles, and we ended up meeting him maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. Um, and he was great. He ran a pub in Los Angeles, and we worked with him for about well, I worked with him for about a year. But I kept increasing my prices. Obviously, as demand grew, I was increasing my prices. I started on Upwork at $25 an hour, and now I'm at $365 an hour. And so, as the demand grew, I grew the prices. And in the end, as a guy who ran a pub, it wasn't profitable anymore for him to carry on. And so, we had a chat, and we both left happy. And I actually spoke to him maybe a couple of weeks ago, and he's going to come back on board. But realistically, it's about, delivering value, showing your successes, and then getting that demand in and increasing your price. when we see huge sort of uproars in demand in terms of my time, we know it's time to increase the hourly rate.
Exactly. And that goes back to what you were sharing with our audience. If you're $30 an hour, but you're accepting $6 an hour work, don't do it. Just
Yeah,
don't. I mean,
there's
we
so
are
many
watching. If we're
problems.
going to hire you, we're watching. And if we understand that you don't value your value enough, we're not going to either.
Agreed. And there's so many sort of, remember, a lot of the hiring you do at the higher end is about confidence. And, say for instance, you went to hire me for my hourly wage and I wasn't confident about the project. You're going to go, why am I going to pay him that much money? And he's not confident in his work. So if you're not confident about your hourly wage, then, you're probably too high. You've got to be confident about your work and the work that you're doing and how much it's worth, and evaluate it from there. It's all about working out how much your ROI is, really.
It is. And long time ago, I've had people say, well, Denise, how do you know what to charge for a website? I always do a consultation, always. I'm never going to just say, sure, and I do the same thing with my podcast. You and I had a great conversation, pre-conversation.
Yeah.
I wanted to know who you are, what you bring to the table, what we're going to talk about. That works. But I learned a long time ago what my value is if I'm building a website or if I'm doing the website with social media marketing. And I'm going to tell y'all right now, if you come to me and say, Denise, I just need a website, but I'm not going to do social media marketing, I will turn you away. I will build you a pretty boat anchor that does nothing. You're going to be mad. I'm going to be upset. So I will say, listen, I can't do that, but can I refer you to some other companies that might be willing to help you. But the thing is, when I'm listening and I know pretty much what that website is going to entail, they'll say, okay, what are we looking at in terms of the project fee? And I just tell them, I don't have to stop. I don't have to think. I don't have to waffle. I know what it is. And
Yeah.
that's confidence because I know what value I'm bringing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the thing that sets people aside on Upwork. Upwork probably has 80% of freelancers who have never had a job. That's a
Oh,
probability. I don't know if that's true, but I suspect it's that or higher. Um, and a lot of that is either because they're not showcasing any work they've done previously. Their hourly wage is insane. I think I've spoken about this in the past, but my girlfriend, she's on Upwork, but her brother signed up to Upwork, and he signed up with $100 an hour um, fee, and he had nothing to showcase. He just passed his exams, and he didn't really bring enough to the table to satisfy anyone, and he didn't apply for any jobs either, which is a massive problem.
yeah.
Um,
So what does he do out of curiosity?
oh, you're not going to get a job on Upwork for that. You've got to
Yeah.
you probably have to drop down by quite a lot, but it's about satisfying and showing people that feedback means everything.
Yes.
Sure, you're going to pick up some bad feedback based on a bad match of clients, or you messed up looking at the job description or this or that, but feedback's everything. And building relationships with these guys, they're all human. And honestly, most of the people who I work with are awesome people. Like, I've met a lot of them and they're amazing.
I've never really dealt with Upwork. I do spend some time over on Fiverr, and
Yeah.
I've got a few favorites over there, but are Fiverr and Upwork compatible? Are they basically the same thing, the same people? How do you choose between them, or do you?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a different price match from what we can see. Fiverr has tried to change that recently, but Upwork's a bit more of a marketplace for freelancers, whereas Fiverr is a bit less. But Fiverr is trying to change that. For instance, I'm not sure if you saw, they have the guy who designed the Apple logo on Fiverr, exclusively on Fiverr, and you can hire him to make you a logo.
I have
And
no
I
idea.
I believe he's $150,000 for a logo.
Okay, never mind. So I'm sure he's worth it, though, if Apple logo, everybody knows it.
Yeah, I think they're trying to change it, but yeah, Upwork's a bit more market. But you'll get both on both freelance freelancing marketplaces. You could hire an admin for $3 on Upwork, and you could hire someone on Fiverr for $100,000.
That's I'm gonna have to go find now. I believe you, but I have to see it. I have to go
Oh,
find
it's a
that.
cool profile. You should definitely check it out. He has a little video as well. It's really cool. It's cool to
Yeah.
watch.
I love to watch things like that. So, how do you characterize, and I'm going to call it the gig economy because that's what I've always termed it as, the gig economy, as a labor market? Is it growing? Is it stagnant? What's going on with it?
Yeah, I think it's still growing. I think, honestly, I think a lot of it's about education. I speak to Upwork a lot, where I have a lot of people who work at Upwork who are fantastic with me. And, I speak to them a lot about education in terms of the clients and stuff like that. I think it's still growing. Obviously, people are starting to stop working from home and go back to offices, which is going to, cause a little bit of a rumble. But I think freelancing, it will be here for good. One thing you've got to work out, for instance, let's say your job, for instance, as a web developer. Now, a normal web developer, let's say, is $100,000 a year, plus insurance, plus a seat at a desk, plus anything else that you'd have to pay in America for hiring an employee. So let's say a total of $120,000 a year. Now, if we don't have that much work for you, let's say we only have 20 hours work for you a week, realistically, they're better hiring a freelancer, 100%. And they might get, one thing people always forget is when you're hiring in a city, let's say you're trying to hire in Chicago, right? You're trying to hire the best email marketer in Chicago. Now, they're probably going to cost you, I don't know, $120,000 a year.
I
Are
don't
they
know.
the best? Are they the best email marketer in the world? No, because they're not competing with other countries.
And they're stuck, they're in Chicago. So
Yeah.
why not, widen the hiring pool and find the best wherever they are? Spain, Baton Rouge, wherever you are, find the best wherever you can.
And that's what it does. It opens up the world to the best people. And that's why it's so interesting, because you can really find the best in the world. And you'll find some super interesting things, like some of the best graphic designers are in Ukraine, and some of the best, you know, web developers are in India or in the Philippines. And you'll find such cool things that you'll look at and you'll be like, this is awesome. And if you're hiring a person full time, you'll never get that. You won't get the experience of someone from another country, and you also won't get the price point, because paying someone who's specialized in email marketing is so much better than paying someone who's just a marketing manager who does 20 other roles like SEO and content.
Exactly. So I wanted to ask you, what are some of your best strategies for winning clients in the competitive field of digital marketing? We've talked a bit about that. And CRM systems.
Sure.
We have
So it's really
different
about niching
CRM.
down. It's about niching down, and that's why I specialize in email marketing. That's our main bread and butter. And say for instance you want anything else, we can work on it with you, but only if it's within our scope. A lot of people join Upwork and they'll just be a digital marketer or a marketer. And this is something that I always hated about workplaces as well. Like you'll become a marketing manager and you'll have like 20 other roles, and you're not good at any of them because you're doing so many roles. You're account manager, you're SEO, you're content, you're email marketing, you're an admin, you're this, you're that. You're not specialized, and that's what people want. Say for instance, I want someone to make me a gravity form with a nice design. I'm going to hire two different people for that. I'm going to hire one person to put gravity form in and one person to design it, because I know their skill sets and I know what they're going to be the best at. But if I want to hire a generalist, it's not going to be as good as as two people who are specialized in that specific field.
You know what you just reminded me of, and I've seen this time and time again. It still pops up. Is, somebody is saying, oh, well, I don't want to do social media. I'm going to have my office manager do that.
Uh,
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Okay. One, your office manager doesn't know anything about social media. It's a very tricky place to wade around in. You have to know what you're doing. 2, they have other things to do, like your calendar and everything else. 3, they're probably going to quit or retire at some point. Now what? And that's after they've really screwed up your social media, by the way.
Yeah, I don't understand why people do that. You'll notice that a lot though, especially when you get higher up in Upwork, you'll notice that like a lot of people will say, you know what, I'm gonna get my admin to do this. And you think, your admin's probably great at detailing your calendar or, ensuring that you get to meetings or ensuring this is set up correctly. But is your admin the best at uploading, your whole client list, cleansing it, and sending an email out to them?
Nope.
Probably not.
No.
Um, and people forget how much their client database is worth to them. And so they'll pass it around willy-nilly to their admins and stuff like that. And it's crazy, it really is.
And then you have resentment breeding in the office. I've seen this. The admin is saying, I'm overwhelmed. Stop it. You're asking me to do something I know nothing about. Stop
Yeah.
it. If you keep trying to force this on me, I'm going to go work at a dentist's office down the street. Stop it.
Yeah, and a lot of admins aren't trained on specific skills either. They're just kind of dumped it. And I think that's why, a lot of admins struggle because they just take on a 40-hour job or a 60-hour job and they're not educated on any of the skill sets. They're just thrown in deep water. And that's bad for business and bad for you as a freelancer. Um, you want to be the best at a specific skill. That's the way to do it. And that's the way to make the most money, and that's the way to be, to have the best work-life balance, I'd
Right.
probably say.
And be of value. Okay. We are running out of time. I hate that because this is such a fascinating conversation. So, the work that you do and what you're seeing in the world, how do you think it's going to keep on going? I mean, I think personally that a lot, the gig economy to me is not slowing down, and I hope it doesn't. But what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to keep rising as people realize that the rate's getting more and more. Even like I know you don't want to get into deep conversation, but you look at something like California that's having massive labor shortages. McDonald's is paying over $20 an hour for low wage workers.
Hmm.
I think more and more you're going to see freelancing blow up in, especially United States, because of these kind of things. More so because the talent is out there, and it's a lot cheaper hiring freelancers, and you'll get a much better person.
Oh, no question. And I just read, you mentioned California McDonald's. I just read, I think, on Twitter before we jumped on this call, that people in California in particular are considering McDonald's and Taco Bell fast food to be a luxury. They're just
Yeah.
not going, and they shouldn't.
I said this to my girlfriend. I said, if this was, she's American. I said, if this was 5 years ago and McDonald's were paying $20 an hour for zero responsibilities, I'd probably say sign me up. Why not? You know, I think that it's crazy that people don't want to work, but the reality is there's so many better gigs out there and stuff like that. And employers for a long time weren't treating people right before COVID. There was a lot of trust issues where people couldn't work from home or this or that, and employees had all the power, and now they don't. And I think freelancing becomes pretty important to their business nowadays.
I agree with you. And another problem that we have in America in particular is there's too much free money. There are too
Yeah,
many people
I
being
know.
on welfare, food stamps. They're not required to do a darn thing, so they won't.
Yeah, and that's the same in the UK, and it sucks, right? It really does. But it's the way that America's grown up, and it's the way UK's grown up, and it's unfortunate because it'd be amazing if people wanted to work and had a passion. I know maybe our parents and our grandparents didn't have a passion to work, and they had to work to earn the money for the food on the table. But the reality is, I think more and more people want to work for something that they really enjoy, and I think that's probably why the McDonald's have to pay such a high rate.
And we want to be of value. And I know I keep bringing that word up, but we are our own value proposition. We have to live up to what we have to share and bring to the table. And as you've said a couple of times, keep upskilling.
Yeah, Yeah, and it's trying to find ways that you can be better. I'm always looking on Twitter, I'm always looking on, Social Media Examiner, or I'm looking on various different places to see what's going on, or see how we can be better, or see if there's a better tool out there, or see if ways we can increase effectiveness. For instance, we're using a tool to cleanse our contacts, and we referred this tool to honestly like 50 clients. We probably made them over like $400,000. And I spoke to my developer for a few hours, and we ended up creating the exact same script that they built. And I said, well, why didn't we do this sooner? And it's because we weren't giving enough responsibilities to the freelancers.
That makes sense. Okay, listen, Ross, I sincerely appreciate your company today. This has been fascinating, and spending time with you has been a genuine pleasure. So, do you have any last thoughts to share with the audience, and how can listeners connect with you on the web?
Yeah, sure. So if you're a freelancer, just go out there and learn about other freelancers who are in the same situation as you. If they just pass their exams, work out what their hourly rate is, work out what they're doing well, and take some tips from it and build your own profile, and just get applying and go from there. And if you're a business, engage with your contact list, engage with your past clients, and just hit that send button, and you won't regret it.
Absolutely.
If you want,
You've
if you
mentioned
want
exams a couple of times. I hate to interrupt, but you've mentioned it
to,
a couple of times, and I wrote it down. What do you mean by exams?
so there's a lot of exams on Upwork. There's also exams
Okay.
obviously outside of Upwork. So just learn about, let's say you want to be a HubSpot developer, go do the HubSpot qualification. They're amazing anyway. But go do those tests and become better than the people you're competing with.
I didn't realize that was out there. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted. Keep on going.
If you want to contact me, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter. My handle is RJOENSK. But I'm on LinkedIn, and I own a company called DigitalME.cc, and just get in touch if you need any help.
Excellent. Well, listen, Ross, thank you so much. And to our audience, as we conclude today's episode, your feedback means an awful lot to me. If you found the show helpful, please support us with a quick review on iTunes. And this is why, because your input is vital in my mission to inspire and empower more individuals. So don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a review, and share your Partner in Success Radio with friends and colleagues. And be sure to find Ross Jenkins on the web and connect with him. And thank you for tuning in. And I will see you next week. Ross, again, thank you so much.
Thanks very much, guys.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.